5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
And welcome to your Media Mosh podcast. I am your host, Shane Beauregard, coming at you with all your news, reviews, and previews. And what to watch on your streaming services, your television, and your local theater. I hope everyone's had a great week and a weekend. We're just going to jump right into it today, folks. I'm going to bail on some of the news I was going to talk about because some of it is, by this time, is a little old. But I do want to touch on the New Mutants trailer, which is supposed to come out like 3 years ago. Got moved back like 3 different times last year. It's finally coming out in April. They've already released 2 trailers. I'm on board, and I know this is like the last Fox, so-called Fox, Marvel movie. 1, I don't think it could be any worse than Dark Phoenix. And 2, I at least appreciate the direction they're heading into with this movie. They're making at least a different type of X-Men movie. They're giving it that dark, possibly horror, thriller vibes, which, again, something different, something original. I'm on board. I like the cast. It's a very young cast. Coming out in April. Thumbs up for me. The other trailer that just came out today was Morbius with Jared Leto. And you know what? The trailer looks better than I thought it was going to be. I have very limited knowledge about this character, but it's easy Wikipedia read. And somehow and they are trying to connect this to the MCU loosely, meaning they're still keeping it tied to the Spider-Verse. Because if you notice, and I caught it the first time, there's a scene where Jared Leto's going down an alley and there's a Spider-Man poster and it says murderer, which is referencing the end of Far From Home. Then at the very end of this trailer, you get the Michael Keaton Vulture character. So whether it's going to be Tom Holland eventually joining this, or I've heard just the craziest rumors I've ever heard, but who knows? I don't mind them tying it into at least a timeline of the MCU, or at least making it seem like it's going on in the same universe, even if Tom Holland never appears in any of these Sony Spider-Verse movies. Does not bother me one bit. That being said, I'm on board for the Morbius movie. You have Christian Bale in contract talks, getting ready to join Thor 4. We don't know what character he's going to play, but I don't think it's going to be a big role because I'm assuming he's going to be on other projects. So I'm thinking a voiceover character, much like Bradley Cooper with Rocket. Something along those lines I think he'd be well suited for. The big news was all the Oscar noms came out, and I'll touch upon that in a little bit. I'm not going to go into depth and give you all the damn categories, but I'll touch on Best Picture and the so-called snubs. You always have this debate right after the Oscar releases nominations. Who was snubbed, who was robbed, whatever. I'll go over who I thought was really robbed. And that is all the news I'm going to really touch upon. Oh, no, real quick. 2 remakes I've heard bandied around from credible sources. 1, Jaws remake. They better not, because you will see riots. This is one of the movies, much like Princess Bride, probably more so than Princess Bride. This is one of the movies in cinematic history that should never, ever, 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 ever be touched ever again. Period. End of discussion. Let's move on to the other movie they were talking about, which is The Howling. And honestly, I have no problem with this one. 1, I don't even remember The Howling. I think there were 4 or 5 of them. I put The Howling under cult status. So if you want to pick this up and redo it for a new generation, no problem. In fact, I think I read where the It director wants to take helm of this. More power to him. He did a fantastic job with both chapters of It. Let him take on The Howling. I like the werewolf subgenre. It's fine. If they want to go in that direction, I'm all aboard that one. Real quick, let's get into some vagina talk. And I only bring this up because Goop, which is run by Gwyneth Paltrow, which apparently I really knew nothing about. It's like a health and wellness website, cosmetics, anything for women and men that is founded and supposedly run by Gwyneth Paltrow. And she's been ruining vaginas now for the past couple of years. She's the one that got onto this steam cleaning your curtains every once in a while, which is a great deep dive if you're bored reading about these women who got second-degree burns from squatting over, boiling, or whatever they do, squatting over this hot water. I shouldn't laugh, but if you're dumb enough to squat over boiling water and to suffer second-degree burns, that can't feel good. That's not right. Now they're doing something called sticking jade eggs up in there, something to unlock your energy flow and then make you more connected with yourself. It's getting out of hand. I only bring it up because this thing hit the headlines the other day. They now have a "It Smells Like My Vagina" candle, which I'm going to have to talk about this subject once I have my VP on here, because I have a couple questions. One, what... I don't even know how to get this started. Is it supposed to smell like Gwyneth Paltrow's vagina? Or where did they get the baseline on where they think the vagina should smell like? Like, what was the baseline? Like, again, many questions running through my head. I'm going to leave this for another subject, but we need to get Gwyneth Paltrow to stop ruining vaginas. Ladies, do not take her advice. Let's put a pin in that for several episodes down the road. I just laughed out loud when they actually have a candle it's $75 and it's sold out right now. So there you go, folks. If you're waiting to get your hands on there, you might want to go put one on back order right now. So that is really all the news I do have for you. Let's go right into the box office. Real quick cap. Just Mercy comes in at number 5, bringing in $5 million. The newly released Like a Boss with Tiffany Haddish and Rose Byrne, and the very goddess-like Salma Hayek. And yes, I will use the word goddess, because that's what she is. She was wearing this fantastic form-fitting dress at the Golden Globes, and that's the only word that popped in my head. I would give not 2 thumbs, but definitely a thumb and another finger to take a small run at that. Coming in at number 3, you have Jumanji, bringing in $14 million, bringing its 4-week release to $257 million. Number 2, finally dropping on the top spot, is Rise of the Skywalker, bringing in $15 million, bringing its 4-week total to $478 million. Coming in at number 1 is 1917. And just a little, I guess it's not as much as an odd tidbit as I thought, because it was on limited release the last 2 weeks. But last week it was number 17 at the box office and rises all the way up to number 1, bringing in $36 million. Now next week at the theater, you have Bad Boys for Life, which I know Martin Lawrence is really hoping takes off. And then you have the doomed Robert Downey Jr. project, Doolittle. And what's scary is we're only a couple days from release, and none of these movies have been reviewed yet, which is a major, major red flag. Coming out on Netflix this week, you have the 6th and final season of Grace and Frankie, and you have Killer Inside, the mind of Aaron Hernandez, the ex-Patriot tight end who killed several people and then committed suicide in jail. It's documentary style, obviously. Not my cup of tea, but that is what's out on Netflix this week. Now, let's get into what I watched. The BBC Netflix original Dracula, which is sitting at 74% critic score to 55% audience score. And this is going to be non-spoiler talk. You have a fantastic cast in this series. It's 3 episodes. It's an hour and a half an episode. And this is brought to you by the same team who brought you the Sherlock Holmes BBC with Benedict Cumberbatch. They sort of stick to the Bram Stoker's original Dracula storyline with Jonathan Harker. I like the little gender swap they made with Van Helsing. Then you have the Dracula character. This cast is a unknown to me. You have I'm going to butcher his name, Klaus Bang playing Dracula, Dolly Wells playing Sister Agatha Van Helsing, and John Heffernan playing Jonathan Harker. Those are the 3 main characters. But the dynamic between Dracula and Van Helsing really lifts this series. I like the chemistry between the two. I like the back and forth. This show is well written. It's witty. Does everything land? No, because I think they try to throw humor into certain scenes that shouldn't really belong there, so some of it doesn't work. In the first episode is really learning the rules of Dracula, and you meet Van Helsing and Harker's working for him, and he's trying to acquire land to move to and establish himself in England. The second episode is his voyage from where he's at to England, and I'm not going to speak at all about the third episode. I'll touch upon that just a little bit, but I really liked how the writers stuck to some of the original roots from the original story, but added some new mythos to the Dracula character without ruining it. You have the whole cross, and what does that really mean to him? That's a little different. Just some of the myths they break down and add new layers to it. Really enjoyed that. Klaus Bang playing Dracula. He had that Tom Welling kind of Lucifer swag without being cocky, but more confidence, and did a better job portraying that through the Dracula character, more so than Tom Welling the Lucifer. I like how he carried himself. He was suave. He was confident. He on the arrogant side as well. Perfectly balanced character. Now, I will say the first 2 episodes are stronger than the third. I like what they went for in the third episode. I like how it began. It kind of throws you for a little loop. But about 35 minutes in, and I wrote that note here because they added a scene here which really didn't work for me and kind of ruined it. And I'll go into a little spoiler at some other time. Then it picks back up, and I love how they ended this miniseries. So, third episode a little uneven. Just be ready for it. Whether you like the Bram Stoker's version or any other iteration of Dracula, add this to your collection to watch. It's a definite binge. I binged it. The hour-and-a-half episodes move at a pretty good pace. And again, great cast. Well written. I give Dracula a little higher than the critics did. I'll go ahead and give it a 3.5 out of 5. Just being a fan of that overall genre and the performances, I dug it. 3.5 out of 5 for me on Dracula. Go check that out on Netflix right now. And the movie of the week was 1917, directed by Sam Mendes. Right now it's sitting at 90% critic score with an 89% audience score. This movie is straightforward. Before I begin, they're doing this movie a little bit of disservice because they keep bringing up Saving Private Ryan when talking about 1917. 2 distinctively different movies. The only thing those 2 movies have in common is the plot involves getting a message from point A to point B, and that's where it stops. Whereas Saving Private Ryan had that gut-punching, adrenaline-filled opening scene where they're storming the beach, there's none of that in 1917. It doesn't rely on gunfights or battles. You got these 2 common lance corporals played by George McKay and Dean Charles Chaplin playing Schofield and Blake respectively. They have to carry this message across German lines to get to this English battalion who's ready to put on this forward assault, and they're walking into a trap set by the Germans, and they have to deliver this message to them. The rest of the cast, you have scenes in here by Mark Strong, Benedict Cumberbatch, Colin Firth, and Richard Madden, who played Moriarty in the Sherlock BBC series. Really great cameos, and that's what I'll call them because they were all in here for one scene. You're really transported on this journey through Schofield and Blake. And I'm sure you've read about the way this movie was shot. It was one continuous shot. And it really immersed you into this movie. You're at the edge of your seat. Even the quieter moments of this movie, because there's a lot of them. And I will say this, a lot of the action you actually saw in the trailers leading up to the movie. But it was the quieter scenes that, for me, carried this movie along. Kept you on the edge of your seat because it felt like you were right there with them. So even when they were resting, you were kind of trying to look around the corner or over the hilltop to see if anything's coming. It just, one-of-a-kind movie. The cinematography, and I have to mention his name, is Roger Deakins, who I would say would win another Oscar. He actually won one last year for Blade Runner 2049. You won't see a more beautiful shot film this year. I know we're only in January of 2020, but I feel confident saying that. And really, this, if you want to stop and think about this movie, it's really just one mission that a soldier would get in the overall concept of a war. Not saying I've been in war. I've been involved in some missions along the way. None to obviously this intense, but some people didn't like the end of the movie. I liked it, and that's why I liked it, because you have to put this in frame of, hey, this is only one little mission in the main scheme of World War I. If you're going to mark any negatives about this movie, there's really no character development between the 2 main characters. They do a fine job, they do a great job, but I mean, there's no story arcs, there's no character arcs. They're just straightforward. What you see in scene 1 is what you get at the end of the movie. Now, if you're kind of a film junkie, do yourself a favor and kind of immerse yourself in how Mendes and Deakins shot this movie and all the prep work they did so they can do it as a single shot. That's what makes this movie, for me, it's not Saving Private Ryan. It is more on the Dunkirk side, if anything else. So it's not your typical war movie, which was a big turnoff for some of my clients. They mentioned war movie and they were out. But I would say it's no blood and guts. There's no intestines flying around. I agree with the critics and the audience. I would give 1917 a 4.75 out of 5. And if you have any hesitation whether you should wait if this goes on streaming or rent it, no, you need to see this on the big screen. It's well worth the price of admission. So that is what I've seen this week. just the other day they announced all the Oscar nominations, which means I have to start my annual trek into seeing all the Best Picture nominated movies and then give you my sure to go wrong predictions. Luckily for me, I've seen more than half the nominated movies. Two of them are on Netflix, so that's a no-brainer. So here's what was nominated for Best Picture. You have Ford vs. Ferrari, The Irishman, Jojo Rabbit, Joker, Little Women, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Marriage Story, Parasite, 1917. So the only ones I have to knock out are Ford vs. Ferrari, Parasite, Little Women, and Jojo Rabbit. Out of those, I think the toughest for me to get through is going to be Little Women, because that is not inside my wheelhouse. That is the opposite of that. So the only thing I will say about all these nominations, I'm not going crazy, but I don't understand how the Joker has 11 Oscar noms. I get Best Actor, I get Score, I'll even get Cinematography, but Director, I mean, a lot of it is like, that one just drove me a little nuts, but I'm already over it. Best Actor, the only snub, and I'm going to the hill on this one, is Adam Sandler. I thought he should be in there over Jonathan Pryce for The Two Popes. I was shocked to see Antonio Banderas on this list. He was in a foreign film, but and I can't bash him because I didn't see that one. But DiCaprio, Driver, and Joaquin Phoenix are well deserving. Just they should have swapped out Pryce with Adam Sandler. Other than that, I have no problem. Actress, you have Saoirse Ronan, Scarlett Johansson, which I think she's the second actress ever to be nominated for Best Actress and Supporting Actress in the same year. So way to go, ScoJo. Then you have Cynthia Erivo for Harriet, and then you have Charlize Theron for Bombshell. So again, the only snub I see is Adam Sandler, and I'll get more Oscar talk as we get closer on to it. So I'm going to start knocking out my challenge with Parasite hopefully this weekend. Not making any promises, but that would be next on my list to see. And then we'll move on from there. And you're also getting the outrage with the hashtag Oscars so white and hashtag Oscars so male. And all I'll say to that is, women, just make a better movie. We'll pay attention. No, I'm just kidding. Joke. I don't see the uproar like there was last year. I do think Lupita Nyong'o was my second biggest snub for us. Just a fantastic job she did, especially playing her quote-unquote other self or doppelganger. But that one doesn't shock me as much because if Toni Collette didn't get a Best Actress nom for Hereditary, which you know my feelings towards that movie, but Toni Collette, what a performance that was. If she didn't get one for that horror movie, Lupita getting one for us was a long shot to begin with. So I just think maybe the committee needs to look a little harder when it comes to some of the performance in horror movies. Those are my two biggest snubs. Moving on, I am going to end this episode with giving you my most anticipated movies of the year. I don't think you'll find these movies on too many other people's lists. But let's get right off the bat with the one coming out in a couple weeks. That is the Guy Ritchie, The Gentleman. His return to the old style English gangster movie. I am a Guy Ritchie fan. I want to see him return to form, and I don't care if his peak was in 1998 or 2001. I don't care. I want to see something much like Snatch, so I'm hoping The Gentleman will fill that need for me. That one stars Colin Farrell, Charlie Hunnam, Matthew McConaughey, and I can't believe I'm thinking of the guy that cheated on Elizabeth Hurley with that god ugly ass hooker. I can't remember his name, but moving on. Next on my list is the Guillermo del Toro, Kerry Russell, Discount Matt Damon's Project Antlers. That is a horror movie coming out April 27th. Next, this is a surprise for me. You have Mulan, the Disney remake live version of the animated classic. It happens to be one of my favorite Disney movies, and I like the direction they're heading into. I like the changes they're making to the animated film. And that's my biggest beef with all these remakes. If you're going to do something, just make it a little different. Whether it works or not, I appreciate your creativity. I'm fine with not having her pet dragon in there. I like it's more of a war drama, so I like the direction that's heading into. And here are some movies that will strictly be on my list and nobody else's. Godzilla vs. Kong, which comes out in October. I am a huge Godzilla junkie. I don't care. You can put him in any kind of movie. I'm going to watch it. I did enjoy Godzilla King of Monsters last year. I finally want to see these two square off on the big screen. I know it's going to be nothing but a big CGI fest, and I could give two craps. I'm all about it. Next on my list is the follow-up to the 2018 Halloween with Halloween Kills. And I know I'm in the minority. I really liked the 2018 version. I don't think it's as bad as everyone says it is. Because my biggest question was, what did you want out of that movie? I thought it was well directed. Some of the writing was hokey, as we know. And there's a controversial scene towards the end of that movie that would have made me leave the movie theater immediately. That being said, I'm on board with Halloween Kills. That comes out around, obviously, Halloween. Next you have the G.I. Joe spin-off Snake Eyes, which happened to be one of my favorite G.I. Joes growing up. So I'm all aboard. That comes out later in the year as well. Next, you have the Amy Adams vehicle, The Woman in the Window, and it has that very Alfred Hitchcock feel to it, much like Rear Window. It is a mystery thriller. Go check that trailer right now if you haven't seen it. Next, you have the sci-fi Dune, which I have not seen Dune since I was a kid, but it's directed by the same director who brought you Blade Runner 2049, a beautifully made film. Even though it wasn't one of my favorites, I like the director. I'm on board for Dune. I hope it's just a epic movie. That comes out in December. And the last two on my list, Christopher Nolan bounce back movie from Interstellar and Tenet. That comes out July 1st. And I wish I could tell you more about that movie because I can't. I've seen the trailer. He does not give a lot away. But just know it's a Christopher Nolan movie. And he's one of those directors that you know it's going to be an event. And you know it's going to be at least watchable and entertaining. So watch out for that. But my number one most anticipated film is, yes, Tom fucking Cruise in Top Gun Maverick. That comes out in July as well. That movie's going to be awesome. No doubt in my mind. That is my list, folks. You have The Gentleman, Antlers, Mulan, Tenet, Top Gun, Godzilla vs. Kong, Halloween Kills, Dune, Snake Eyes, The Woman in the Window. Yes, I left off Wonder Woman. I left off Ghostbusters. I left off Black Widow. I mean, there's a lot I left off my list, and I'm sure those are going to be fine movies, but these are the movies I'm looking forward to a little bit more. And the one thing I know for sure, because I looked at the list of every movie coming out in 2020, is that we are in for a much better time than we were in 2019, which is not hard to do. It's not hard to do. So that's it, folks. That's all I got for you this week. Until then, go check me out on the Facebook's Media Mosh. Go check me on the Twitterverse at Shane Media Mosh. More importantly, people, go to the Apple Podcast Store, download me, share me, take a second and give me that 5-star review. I know you want to. Then circle back and go check out the Grams, the Twitters, and the Facebooks. Mr. Argue Myself, Chris Rodell, 3 different types of platform for 3 different types of content. Until then, folks, get caught up. Get caught up in the mosh.